Considering you've said on many, many occasions that your whole goal is to be as prepared as possible when you get to the first tee, how do you guard against just knowing this opportunity at the Open is different than previous ones, just with what's at stake and all?
I mean, I think, it's kind of a funny thing. It's like, yeah, if I win this tournament, that would be amazing. But I think then I show up the next week and it's like, okay, now Scottie's won the Grand Slam. He's won all these golf tournaments. Now where do we go from here? And so no matter what, I think as a player and as a professional athlete, you're never going to live up to the expectations of people. And I think sometimes that's a little bit of the fallacy in our sport, is that like, oh man, if I win the US Open, then I'm going to be satisfied. I'm going to be, I've won all the tournaments, then my career is essentially over and I've accomplished everything I could want to accomplish. But then I think the goalposts are always just moved further and further. If you took my career from where I was as a college player, I would have, extremely overachieved being in this position. I wasn't the best college player. I had a decent college career, but by no means was I a, can't miss type of prospect. The guys that I turned pro at the time were better than me. There were guys, you look at like Colin Morikawa and Hovland and Matt Wolff, those guys were winning tournaments immediately when they turned pro, and I had a little bit of a slower burn in terms of the development of my career. And for me, would it be a dream to win the US Open? Of course. But at the end of the day, the Grand Slam has never been a motivating factor for me. I always just wanted to be the best version of myself, and that got me this far. And so when it comes to this golf tournament, like I said, I'm going to step up on the first tee, remind myself that I've done everything possible I could in order to play well, and now it's just a matter of going out there and trying to execute and, kind of going back to enjoying the competition versus feeling like you have to win for some reason.
The fairways are being presented much wider this year than in 2018. I know you didn't play the 2018 US Open, but what is your perspective on that setup decision? And how much do you think driving accuracy will be at a premium this week relative to other major venues that you've seen?
Yeah, I feel like the USGA is, I think, doing a good job of trying to strike a balance between having things be the most difficult they possibly can be, while also still rewarding shots hit that are really good. And I think with the way the game of golf is going, guys are getting so good, it's getting increasingly harder and harder in order to have winning scores be over par or whatever, somebody would want them to be. It's getting increasingly harder, I think, for that to happen. And when you look at this golf course specifically, a good shot off the tee more often than not is going to end up in the fairway. I think sometimes it can turn into a little bit of a bomb and gouge type test when nobody can hit the fairway. I think you can have fairways for sure that are too small where it's just like, and if they get really firm, then all of a sudden nobody can hit the fairway. And then it's like, all right, well, I'm probably not going to hit this fairway. I better just get up there somewhere so I can get up on the green. And I think the USGA, and what's really good about I think some of these major championship setups is a little bit of the variety that we see from year to year on these courses. And, this course with it having wider fairways, but then the greens play really, really small. So I think you kind of have an interesting kind of paradox between those two, wide fairways and greens that play quite small.
I guess just to quickly follow up on that, I think with the widening, some people will say, well, driving accuracy won't be as important. What would your reaction be to that?
I'd say driving accuracy is extremely important. There might be a couple holes, but when you put a 20-mile-an-hour wind out there, these fairways, with how firm they are not going to play super wide. I think when you look at your poor tee shots and you're going to be hitting into the rough in this fescue, it's going to be virtually impossible to get the ball on the green. And I think that's really good. I think when you hit a drive into the fairway, you should have a chance to hit a really good shot and get on the green. And then when you miss the fairway, for the most part, it should be a challenge to get your ball onto the green. I think with the high grass you have around these fairways, it provides that challenge. I think when you get further out into the crowd, since there's no real thing to block it, then you can kind of get a little bit lucky. But if you're hitting the ball barely offline out here, you're going to have some trouble getting the ball out onto the greens.
Scottie, right here, simple question, but how do you evaluate your year so far? We're about 2/3 of the way through, if you count the Tour Championship as the end. What do you think of 2026 at this point?
I'd say I feel like I've been close most of the year. I feel like I just haven't been as sharp as I needed to be. I think the margins in this game are so small. For me to be winning a lot of tournaments, you got to just be really, really sharp. And I feel like maybe I've just been like a touch dull because I think statistically I think I'm maybe leading the FedEx Cup. I think I'm leading the strokes gained statistics. So by no means is it a bad year. Is it up to the play that I have had the previous couple of years? Probably not, but it's not far off. And so I would say a lot of it's just that sharpness. And that can come from a variety of things, but sometimes I'm either not making the momentum putt, or I make a sloppy bogey somewhere, or I hit an iron shot a touch thin instead of really solid, and all of a sudden it ends up in the bunker. I make bogey instead of hitting a really good shot and making birdie. The margins are just so small, I think, in this game, and I feel like this year I've been what I would describe as close.